Hey everyone, my name is Ezra. I take this opportunity to thank you guys for watching my channel, those who are subscribing, those who are liking, those who are commenting. Thank you so much. And I believe that as you are viewing these videos, you are learning something that will help you, something that will add value on you. Last time we looked at how we can master our emotions, and I told you that I'm going to give you 3 steps how you can become a master of your emotions. And in step number 1, we looked at how we can recognize our mental biases. We talked about the mental biases, all of them, and how they continually influence our reasoning, how they continually influence our thinking capabilities. I recommend for those of you who didn't watch that video, you can go back and view that video. For today, we are going to look at step number 2, and that is becoming aware of the inflaming factors. The inflaming factors, these are factors or these are things that raise our emotions high. They put us into what we call high-grade emotions. And once we are into that state, once we are under high-grade emotions, our reasoning powers are blocked. We cannot distinguish the reality. We cannot distinguish from what we are thinking from what is really happening. And once we become aware of them, which is the most important thing why I'm making these videos. The moment you become aware of how these emotions operate within you, then you can counterbalance them. You can counteract these emotional effects, and which will help you to cope up in the day lifestyle. One of the inflaming factors are the triggers from our early childhood. When we were still young, around 3 to 5 years, around there, when we were still in that age, that was the most sensitive and vulnerable stage of our life. The wounds that we received during that state, or the excitement that we received during that state, those things remain deep buried within us. And as we grow, let's say as we reach in our early 20s, in our early 30s, those wounds are triggered back by maybe a person or by something that we have encountered in our lives. Take an example of a young man who experienced abandonment by his narcissistic mother. And by being abandoned, that means he was unworthy of her love. That wound remains deep buried within that kid as he grows. In later life, when he marries someone, let's say he has a girlfriend or a wife, when that wife comments something about his character, or comments about his flaws, or about his blind spot side of him, that young man is more likely to be irritated. The wounds from early childhood are triggered, and that man will start sensing an imminent sense of betrayal. He will start thinking that now the woman wants to betray him. And he will start surrounding himself with excuses. He will become reactive, or what will lead to what he feared most: betrayal and abandonment. Because the wife or the woman is more likely to abandon him. Some of these things, they are beyond our control. They are wounds that are deeply buried within us. But the most important thing is to recognize these wounds within us, to recognize the behaviors, the impulsivity in us, behaviors that appear childish. And once we recognize them, we should counterbalance them by either giving ourselves space, distancing ourselves from others before we become reactive. Another factor are the sudden gains or losses. We have all encountered this in our daily life. We have all experienced sudden gains. We have all experienced sudden losses. But in most cases, we become irrational when we encounter such experiences. Neurologically, when we win, when we experience sudden gain, chemicals are released in our brain, which forces us to repeat the same experience. And this can be a starting point of any form of addiction. And the perfect example to this are the gamblers. When he experiences a sudden gain, or he wins a lottery, chemicals are released in his brain, which forces him to repeat the same experience which he experienced previously. And then he ends up losing all the money which he won. He forgets the role which luck might have played in his gains. Another one are the sudden losses. When we experience sudden losses, we start to imagine that those losses will happen again, and therefore we fear to take risks. We fear to repeat the experience, which in the end leads to the very thing we feared most: failure. This happens in businesses. When you experience a collapse of the business, or someone goes bankruptcy, this time around when he's coming back, he's riddled with fear of what might happen again. And the solution to this is to counteract these emotions with the necessary optimism or pessimism. When you win, be extra worried. When you lose, it's not the end. There are still other chances of yours. Another factor are the rising pressures. In our lives, we encounter a lot of things that brings us stress, that brings us a lot of tension. And as we encounter these stressful moments, our self-control is loosened. We become so impulsive, we become reactive. And the solution to this is to recognize when it is happening to you, when your emotions are being inflamed, when you are becoming angry or you are overly excited. Recognize this in yourself. And once you recognize this in yourself, please distance yourself. Get a moment where you'll be alone and you allow these emotions to cool down. Otherwise, you are going to do things that you regret after. Recognize the stress, the tension in you, and distance yourself. Next is become aware of the inflaming individuals. There are people who are gifted with charisma, people who are gifted with expressing the way how they feel. And when we come across these people, we get churned up in their drama and we become their devoted followers. Our reasoning powers are suppressed, and this may lead to some radical actions which we may perform as their devoted followers. And the solution to this is to recognize these inflaming individuals when you come near them. They may be politicians, they may be on the media, they may be your friends that raise in you some high-grade emotions whereby you cannot think for yourself. And once you start to realize, once you start to become aware of this in yourself, it is high time to distance yourself from them. Lastly is the group effect. Being in a group does not stimulate independent reasoning, but rather a desire to belong. When we are in a group, when we are caught up in a group, and this may be in a political rally, political gathering, religious gathering, in any other gathering, we find it so hard to think for ourselves. We find it really so hard to overcome this emotional pull in the group gathering. And this is important. This has some positive aspect of it. It is very, very important because it's when we can come together for a collective good. It's when people come together pulled by that emotional pull. They come together, they perform something good that can benefit all of them. But in most cases, we are caught up in groups that advocate for rabid patriotism, that advocate for hatred, that creates an us versus them dynamic. And once you realize this, it is better to distance yourself from that group. It is better to consider your independent reasoning. And demagogues use this so much. The politicians, they use this so much. They rely on vague but full of emotive words like justice, patriotism, to influence us in a collective group, in the group. And once we are influenced, we find it so hard to reason. They talk about things that are so vague, but never talking about solutions that can result into actions to solve the problem. They are masters at becoming saviors of the problems which they have solved. They create chaos, they create a sense of urgency in you, and they place themselves as savior. So become aware of them, become aware of this emotion pool in the group, and inoculate yourself from it. Maintain your independent reasoning. In my next video, we are going to look at step number 3, how we can master our emotions. And in step 3, by the time we end our step 3, then you will have reached a certain level of rationality. Please, if you've liked this video, subscribe and hit the like button. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. See you in my next video, which is step number 3 on how we can control or become masters at controlling our emotions. Love you.